At dinner, my daughter Olivia blurted out, "You're such a loser, Mom, but Dad's new wife Lauren isn't." I kept quiet, though inside it felt like my heart just shattered. A week later, Olivia ended up with no car, no money, and nowhere to stay. That very same evening, my ex-husband called me in tears, and what he said completely turned things upside down. Anyway, before I go on, you know how these things go. Make sure you give this video a like and drop a comment about what you think of the story. We might even give you a little shout out in the next one, so stick around. Today's shout out goes to Emily Parker from Dallas, Texas. The kitchen in my tiny apartment smelled like chicken soup, the kind I always made on Sundays. The rich, warm scent filled up the little dining room, mixing with the fresh flowers I'd grabbed from the corner store. It was a calm Sunday here in Milwaukee, and as usual, the wind found its way through the old windows. Olivia, my 26-year-old daughter, sat across from me at our worn wooden table, moving her spoon around in the bowl like she was mad at it. My son Jason, who's 24, sat right beside me doing his usual thing, trying to keep the peace. We chatted about normal stuff, work, the weather, how the balcony plants were finally coming in. Then all of a sudden Olivia slammed her spoon down, the clatter echoing in the quiet room. "You're a loser, Mom," she said, her voice slicing through the air. "But Dad's new wife Lauren, she's not. She's got it all together. Big career, nice clothes, expensive everything. I'm thinking I might just start calling her Mom from now on." Her words hit me hard like a punch to the stomach. My hands trembled around my water glass, but I stayed silent. Jason's eyes went wide in shock. My gaze drifted to the family picture on the wall. Us at the park 5 years ago before the divorce blew everything apart. "Olivia, that's not okay," Jason said, leaning forward. His voice was calm but heavy with hurt. "Mom's been here for us our whole lives. He built this family, not some stranger. You're being mean." Olivia gave a cold laugh, shoving her bowl so hard it nearly tipped over. "Mean? Look at her. You're still working 2 jobs just to get by. Lauren's a real success. He knows how to win. Mom's just ordinary." She pushed back her chair, the scrape loud against the old wood floor. I sat frozen, remembering the day years ago, right after Robert left me for what he called a better woman. Olivia had just finished college and was completely lost. I'd scraped together everything I had to buy her a small red car. Nothing fancy but solid and reliable. "This is for you, sweetie," I'd told her, feeling proud. But all she'd said was, "Thanks, I guess. But Lauren drives a BMW." That cut deep, though I buried it, kept working extra hours, paid her rent, bought her groceries. "Olivia, sit down," I said now, my voice low but firm, my jaw aching from how tight it was. "We're a family. Families don't talk like that." She gave another cold laugh. "Family? Please. You've been holding me back. Lauren gets it, she gives real advice, real help. You're just old-fashioned." And with that she grabbed her jacket and stomped to the door. The sound of her heels on the wooden floor was like a drumbeat. Jason reached over and wrapped his hand around mine. "Don't listen to her, Mom. He's wrong. You're the best mom in the whole world. She's just, I don't know, maybe jealous or something." Jason's words took some of the sting out of what Olivia had said, but the hurt was still raw. He stood, wrapped me in a big hug and whispered, "I'll talk to her later. Love you, Mom." Then he walked out after her, and the front door shut softly behind them, leaving the apartment feeling strangely hollow. I stayed in my chair, staring at the messy table, half-eaten soup, crumpled napkins, and glasses still half full. The chicken soup was cooling fast. My mind kept spinning, trying to figure out how things had gotten so bad. How did it come to this? Olivia was living rent-free in the apartment I paid for, driving the car I bought, while spending almost all her time with Lauren, my ex-husband's polished 45-year-old businesswoman of a wife. Lauren, with her tailored suits and fake smile, always whispering to Michael about how she could improve his family. Meanwhile, I'd been out there in Milwaukee's brutal winters, working nights cleaning offices and days in a little shop. I wasn't just paying bills, I was building a future for my kids. My eyes drifted to the family photo on the wall. It used to make me smile, but now it almost felt like it was mocking me, showing a time when we'd actually been happy. The clock ticked softly in the background, each second making the silence heavier. I didn't get up to clear the dishes. I didn't move at all. Instead, I let my anger grow like a fire slowly getting out of control. I thought about every late shift, every vacation I skipped just so Olivia's bills were paid. Every single time she tossed Lauren's name at me like an insult. Enough. If Olivia thought I was a loser, then fine. But she was about to find out what life looked like without my help. It was time to remind her exactly what I was worth. Outside, the cool night air carried the scent of spring flowers drifting in from the neighbor's garden. I left the lights on in the dining room, their yellow glow spilling into the hallway, and stepped out onto the little balcony with a cold soda in my hand. The can felt good against my skin, the fizz humming under my fingers. Above Milwaukee, the stars sparkled like tiny diamonds scattered in black velvet. I cracked open the soda with a pop, took a long drink and let the chill match the coldness building inside me. I walked around the balcony, stepping on damp leaves left from the earlier rain, and Olivia's words replayed in my head, over and over, feeding the fire. Dropping into the old yard sale chair I'd bought years ago, I tilted my head back, looking up at the stars. It was like they were pulling memories out of me. I remembered the day I'd rented Olivia that apartment, 3 years after the divorce. She was 23, bouncing from one job to another, always finding a reason why nothing worked out. "Mom, I need a stable place to get my life together," she'd said on the phone, her voice shaky and desperate. And like any mom would, I dipped into my savings and rented her a nice one-bedroom in a good neighborhood, not far from me. The lease was in my name, her credit was a mess. "This is your chance, honey," I told her as we stood in the empty living room that still smelled of fresh paint. She'd smiled, hugged me, and a few months later I was the only one paying the rent. "Just until I find something better, Mom," had become her permanent arrangement. And all the while, Lauren was there in the background, whisking Michael away on expensive getaways while I stayed behind, paying for our kids' lives. I took another sip of soda, the bubbles scratching my throat as the anger bubbled up with them. I remembered last Christmas too, how Olivia had opened the envelope I gave her, the one stuffed with money to fix her car. "Thanks, but Lauren's been talking to me about how to invest my money," Olivia had said last Christmas without even meeting my eyes. She'd folded the check, slipped it away, and just kept going on about Lauren. Lauren's ideas, Lauren's advice, Lauren this, Lauren that. That woman had worked her way into my family like she belonged there, playing the role of the hero while I stayed the one quietly holding everything together. But out there on the balcony that night with the stars overhead, something clicked for me. I wasn't going to let it keep happening. Fairness had always been my way. I'd spent years juggling 2 jobs, letting my hands crack from cleaning chemicals, just to give my kids what I never had. And here was Olivia, showing nothing but greed and zero respect. Enough. She was going to learn what life was like without my safety net. I crushed the empty soda can in my hand, the sharp crunch sounding final. I set it on the railing and watched as the first light started bleeding into the sky, soft gray pushing the black away. The dew settled on everything, and so did my resolve. By the time the sun broke over the horizon, I was already dressed and ready. The stars had faded, but their clarity stayed with me like a map. I skipped breakfast, grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, and headed out. My old car started with that familiar rumble, cutting through the quiet Milwaukee morning. Raindrops still clung to the windows of parked cars as I drove toward Olivia's neighborhood, the one I'd picked years ago for its safety. The air smelled like wet grass, but I wasn't here for small details. I had a job to do. I parked in front of her apartment building and spotted the red car I'd bought her, shining from the last wash I'd paid for. The building still looked decent, but the closed curtains gave it a tired, neglected feel. I got out, my shoes whispering against the damp concrete path, and walked to her door. My knock, 3 firm raps, made it clear I wasn't here for a chat. Inside, I heard shuffling and then the click of the lock. Olivia opened the door, hair a tangled mess, wearing wrinkled pajamas. She looked nothing like the smug woman from dinner. "Mom? What are you doing here so early?" she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "I'm here for the car keys, Olivia." "Hand them over," I said, standing tall on her doorstep. She blinked, then let out a laugh, forced and scratchy. "What? No, that's my car. You gave it to me." "Gave it to you?" I repeated, steady as stone. My mind flashed back to the day I'd surprised her, 21 years old, no job after dropping out of community college. I'd pulled up to her old place with a shiny red car, a big bow on top like in the commercials. "This will help you get started, sweetie," I'd told her, feeling proud. And she'd shrugged. "It's okay, I guess. Lauren says she might help me get something better someday." That dismissal had cut deep, but I'd buried the sting and kept paying the insurance every single month. Now, in the bright morning sun, that memory only fueled me. It's registered in my name, I said, pulling the folded registration from my purse. I've paid for every bill, every repair. It's mine and I'm taking it back. Olivia's expression hardened, her hand gripping the doorframe like she was bracing for a fight. You can't just show up and take it. That's stealing, Olivia snapped. I stepped closer, locking eyes with her. No, honey. Keeping something that doesn't belong to you, that's stealing. Now give me the keys or I'll call the police right here and let them sort it out. She froze, her gaze darting between me and the car. Across the street, a neighbor had stopped watering her flowers and was watching us. The morning air was filled with bird song, oddly cheerful against the tension hanging between us. Finally, Olivia muttered a curse under her breath and disappeared inside. When she came back, the keys dangled from her finger. She shoved them toward me, her hand trembling slightly. Fine. Take it. But this is low, Mom. Really low. Lauren's right about you. You're just bitter and jealous. I didn't respond. I just took the keys, feeling the weight of them in my palm. A small, solid victory. Sliding into the driver's seat, I turned the ignition. The engine purred perfectly, thanks to the tune-up I'd paid for last month. Olivia stood on her doorstep with her arms crossed, glaring as I backed out. In the rearview mirror, she grew smaller and smaller, but the look in her eyes stayed sharp in my mind. As I drove through Milwaukee's quiet, tree-lined streets, past houses waking up in the soft morning light, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: control. The dashboard clock ticked forward and my thoughts moved toward the next step. Downtown wasn't far and the bank would be opening soon. This was only the beginning. The drive along the lakefront felt almost too beautiful for the morning I was having. Lake Michigan sparkled off to my right under the rising sun. Pulling into the bank's lot, I grabbed a folder from the glove box. Bank statements, rental agreements, all neatly organized. The glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh, reflecting the bright spring sky. Inside, the tiled floor made my footsteps echo as I approached the counter. A young man in a crisp shirt glanced up from his computer, the bank's logo flickering across the screen. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" he asked politely. I set my ID and rental papers on the counter. "I need to stop the automatic payments on this account. It's for an apartment I own, but the living situation's changed." He nodded, fingers tapping steadily on the keyboard. As he worked, my mind wandered back to the day I'd signed that lease. Olivia had been there, sitting in the rental office, scrolling on her phone while I signed page after page. "Thanks, Mom. This place is perfect," she'd said, not even glancing up. I'd handed over the security deposit, fresh from a night shift, my hands still smelling faintly of cleaning chemicals. Michael was already gone by then, off with Lauren, but I had still wanted Olivia to have a safe home. "Everything looks in order," the banker said after a moment, printing a form. "You'll need to sign here to stop the transfers. The resident will be notified by mail. It may take a few days." I signed without hesitation. "That's fine. Thank you." Gathering my papers, I felt my phone buzzing in my pocket, breaking the calm of the lobby. I stepped to a quiet corner near a tall plant with glossy leaves and answered. It was Olivia, her voice already raised before I could speak. "Mom, what the hell? The bank just called. They said the payments are stopping. You're kicking me out." "This is my apartment," I said into the phone, keeping my tone calm, my fingers gripping the warm plastic against my ear. "My name's on the lease, Olivia. My money's kept it going from day one. You were never a tenant, just a guest I let stay while I covered every single bill." Her breathing came fast and uneven, anger blurring into something that sounded a lot like fear. "You can't do this. Where am I supposed to go? This is cruel. You're ruining my life over one comment." "One comment," I repeated, letting the words hang there. A man in the lobby turned his head toward me, catching some of the sharpness in her voice through the phone. "This hasn't been about one comment, Olivia. It's been years. Years of you taking while I worked, and you leaned on Lauren. Time to stand on your own 2 feet." Her voice slipped into full-on begging, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Wait, Mom. Please, let's just talk. I didn't mean it. Lauren's just been giving me advice, but don't do this." I hung up. The click was clean and final, though her desperate tone still rang in my head. My phone buzzed right away with a new message. Probably her again, or maybe someone else she'd called for backup. The sun hit me full in the face as I pushed through the bank doors, and I found myself wondering who she'd run to next. Back home, the familiar creak of the front door welcomed me. The bank paperwork was still tucked under my arm like a shield. The drive from downtown Milwaukee had been peaceful, the red car humming along the lakefront curves, but Olivia's voice lingered in my ears like a song I couldn't shake. I set the keys on the kitchen counter. The metal made a quiet clink against the granite. Coffee was waiting in the pot I'd set to brew earlier, the steam curling upward in lazy swirls. The rich, bitter scent wrapped around me like a warm blanket. I settled into my favorite armchair, sunlight spilling through the half-open curtains in gold stripes. My phone buzzed again, a text from Jason. "Mom, Olivia just called me freaking out. She says you're cutting her off completely. What's happening?" I took a sip, letting the heat slide through me, then typed back quickly. "Just taking back what's mine. She'll be fine." Before I could even set the phone down, it rang, Jason's name flashing on the screen. I answered, leaning back in the chair. "Hey, honey," I said, keeping my voice even. "Mom, talk to me," he said, worry thick in his voice. "Olivia's losing it over the car in the apartment. She says she's going to Lauren for help and that Lauren's already talking about handling you, teaching you a lesson. Are you okay?" His words hit me cold, but my grip on the coffee mug stayed loose. Lauren. Always Lauren. 45 years old, wrapped in designer fabric, pulling strings from the shadows like she was the puppet master. I walked to the window, looking out at our quiet street. Kids zipped by on bikes, their laughter light in the warm spring air. "I'm fine, Jason. Olivia's just upset," lashing out. "Tell me exactly what she said about Lauren." He paused, his breathing faint in my ear. "She said Lauren offered to cover the rent, but only if Olivia cut you out completely. And she laughed about it, said you've been a pushover for too long. Olivia's buying into it. She's mad, but she's desperate." I nodded to myself. The pieces were sliding into place. Of course Olivia would run straight to her. The woman who slid into our lives the moment the divorce papers were still warm. My eyes drifted to a faded photo on the fireplace mantel. All four of us at a summer picnic back before everything unraveled. Then my mind jumped to a year after Michael left me for Lauren. It was Olivia's birthday dinner, and Lauren had shown up uninvited, sweeping in with expensive gifts that made my homemade cake look like a joke. "Your mom's great at cleaning houses," Lauren had said, that fake smile stretching across her face, a little wink that was anything but kind. "But I'm here to clean up futures." Olivia had been dazzled. I just swallowed the insult, then worked extra shifts the following month so I could pay for her textbooks. That little scene set the pattern. My quiet sacrifices overlooked, while Lauren's flashy gestures got the applause. "Thanks for telling me, Jason," I said, now my voice steady and stronger. "Lauren's playing games, but I'm not backing down. This is about respect and fairness." "I know, Mom. Just be careful." Olivia sounded serious about getting Lauren involved. We talked a little longer, his steady support pouring some strength back into me before we hung up. I scrolled through old messages from Olivia. Months of requests for money stared back at me in black and white. Not one word of thanks. The betrayal dug in deeper, but so did my resolve. I paced the living room, the old floorboards creaking beneath me, my laptop open on the desk. Even in our family group chats I'd been excluded from, I could see Lauren's fingerprints. Subtle digs. Little dismissals. A car door slammed outside, sharp and sudden, and it made me think about all the moments in the past when I'd stayed quiet instead of defending myself. Now I could almost feel the alliances forming against me faster than I'd expected. My mind shifted into planning mode, strategies bubbling up like water just hitting a boil. Before the thoughts could fully settle, my phone started buzzing again. Michael's name flashed on the screen, urgent. The living room seemed to shrink. My coffee was going cold on the table, its steam vanishing like the last traces of patience I had left. I answered while standing by the window, looking out at the calm neighborhood, its peace mocking the storm brewing inside me. "Linda, what on earth are you doing?" Michael's voice came through loud, sharp, and frantic. "Olivia's hysterical. She says you took her car and stopped paying for her apartment. Have you lost your mind?" I gripped the windowsill, feeling the smooth wood under my fingertips. "Hello to you too, Michael. I haven't lost anything. I took back what's legally mine, the car I bought and the apartment I've been paying for. Olivia's had more than enough time to grow up and take responsibility." He sputtered, the line crackling with his outrage. "But she's your daughter. You can't just throw her out like this." Lauren and I are worried sick. She's talking about getting lawyers involved if you don't fix this mess. Lauren again, pulling the strings through him like a puppet master. I walked in a slow circle around the room, passing the photo on the mantel, letting my measured steps counter his frantic tone. A memory pushed its way forward. Right after the ink was dry on the divorce papers when Michael had already moved in with Lauren, I'd still kept the support going, paying extra for Olivia's dental work, for vacations I couldn't even join. Lauren's got big plans for our kids, she'd once told me during a custody call, her voice light and breezy like she was talking about the weather. I'd just signed another check that day, quietly holding everything together while they paraded around showing off their picture-perfect life. But now, hearing the edge of panic in Michael's voice, I could see the cracks in their polished facade. Lawyers, I said evenly, steel under every word. Let her try. Everything's in my name, Michael. This isn't about cruelty, it's about respect and fairness. I've built the ground Olivia stands on, and all I get in return is her calling me a loser. There was a pause, then his voice softened, pleading. Linda, please, for old time's sake. Olivia needs stability. Lauren says you're being stubborn, that you're unreasonable. She's willing to help, but only if you step back and let us take care of this. I stopped pacing, my jaw tightening as clouds began to gather outside, dimming the afternoon light. Lauren's help always comes with strings and control. Tell them both I'm done being the silent provider who gets no respect. Olivia learns now, or she'll keep leaning on other people forever. His voice cracked, desperation seeping in like water through a crack in the wall. You don't understand. She's threatening to cut you out completely. We're still family, Linda. Fix this before it's too late, before we lose her forever. Then he hung up. The silence afterward felt heavier than anything he'd said. I pulled a notebook from the drawer. The crisp pages waited as I flipped to a blank one, my pen hovering while ideas rushed in. Plans, countermeasures, consultations. Before long I was in my car, the notebook now open on the passenger seat, covered in quick, determined notes from that frantic call. The engine's familiar hum cut through the quiet Milwaukee afternoon. The spring sun was low, shadows stretching across my dashboard as I pulled out of the driveway. At a red light downtown, I scrolled through my contacts until my thumbs stopped on a lawyer's number. An old friend from my cleaning days, back when I'd needed legal help with a difficult client. No room for doubt. The alliances against me were tightening. I needed protection and backup. When the light turned green, I drove toward her office on the edge of town. In my rearview mirror, Lake Michigan glinted, a steady current beneath the surface, quiet but unstoppable. The small brick building smelled of fresh coffee and old books the moment I stepped inside. The receptionist nodded me through, and soon I was shaking hands with Janet, my lawyer friend. Her grip was firm, her desk a sea of papers and open files. Linda, what's going on? She asked, leaning back in her squeaky chair, sharp eyes focused behind wire-rimmed glasses. I explained, taking back the car, ending the apartment payments, the growing threats from Olivia and Lauren. My voice stayed level. I opened my notebook, sliding it toward her, bullet points underlined. I need to know exactly what protection I have. The assets are in my name, but they're talking about bringing in lawyers. And Lauren's business dealings. Are there any weaknesses I should know about? Janet flipped through the stack of documents I'd brought, her pen tapping a steady beat. Smart move coming now. The apartment and car are solid, you're in the clear. If they try to claim emotional distress or manipulation, we'll counter with records of every bit of financial support you've provided over the years. Janet paused, flipping through a few more pages. As for Lauren, public records show her companies have had some tax issues. Nothing massive, but enough to use as leverage if she decides to push things. She glanced up at me. I'll draft a few cease and desist letters, just in case we need to go on the offensive. We dug deeper into the details, her questions cutting in like a foundation inspection. Any shared accounts? Business partnerships? Anything they could tie to you? I shook my head, but a memory crept in while she stepped away to make copies. I could still see the day Lauren first met Olivia, at a family gathering not long after the divorce. She'd handed her a glossy business card with that slick, fake smile. Stick with me, kid. Your mom's great with mops and brooms, but I build empires. I'd overheard every word, biting back my pride as I wrote another check for Olivia's car insurance. Now, hearing Janet's advice, that old sting started shaping itself into a strategy. File for a full ownership transfer on the apartment, Janet said when she came back. It'll force them to respond and it'll make their real intentions clear. I left her office with a folder thick with preliminary legal documents, the hallway echoing under my steps. I felt stronger, the weight of this whole mess tilting in my favor. But one meeting wasn't going to be enough. From there, I drove straight to my accountant's office on the other side of town. My tires hummed over every familiar bump and pothole until I pulled into the lot shaded by new oak leaves. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly above Ellen's desk, piled high with spreadsheets and ledgers, a paper ocean. She greeted me with a small nod. "Linda, it's been a while. Sit down. Tell me what's going on." I spread my statements across her desk, pointing out transfers and payments, explaining how I'd cut Olivia off while Lauren circled like a vulture. "I need you to comb through everything. Any loopholes, any problems. Especially shared assets I might have missed." Ellen pushed her glasses higher, fingers flying over the keyboard as she pulled up my records. "Your accounts are clean. Separate. No joint anything with Olivia. But," she glanced at me, "Lauren's business filings. I've seen some of them. And there are some questionable deductions and expenses. If you're thinking about audit red flags, the IRS is always interested in that kind of thing." Her voice stayed matter-of-fact, but I heard the suggestion underneath. "Why the sudden interest in making a move?" "Because respect is long overdue," I answered, jotting down her tips about freezing extra credit lines and anonymous reporting channels. While she printed out summaries and reports, another memory surfaced. One winter years ago, wiring money to fund Olivia's doomed business idea. Lauren had been advising from the sidelines back then, probably collecting consulting fees I'd indirectly paid for. Ellen's advice turned that bitterness into tools I could use. "Secure your retirement funds first," she said. "Then if they try to sue, you countersue for repayment of everything you've given over the years." By the time I stepped back outside, the sun was dipping low, painting the lake road gold as I headed home. My folder was thicker, my plan sharper. And in the quiet hum of my car, determination sat beside me like an old friend. I'd barely turned into my driveway when a new alert lit up my phone, a warning that the storm ahead was about to get much worse. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table under the warm glow of the overhead light. The folder from my meetings lay open, papers fanned out in precise stacks, legal documents to the left, financial records to the right. The house was quiet, afternoon shadows stretching long across the wooden floor, but my focus was sharp and unshakable. First stop, the online portal. My fingers flew over the keyboard as I began the ownership transfer process for Olivia's apartment. I double-checked every address against the lease, making sure every line was correct. The cursor hovered over submit for just a moment, then I clicked. Satisfaction bloomed in my chest as the confirmation email arrived with a cheerful ping. Next, I sealed certified mail envelopes, one to Olivia, another to Lauren at her business address, containing notices of asset freezes and ownership changes. I pressed each stamp firmly, the ink from my pen flowing steady and sure. A flash of memory cut in. Lauren's grand entrance at Michael's company party years ago, champagne glass raised high, toasting to new beginnings, while Olivia hung on her every word. My quiet sacrifices hadn't even been in the room. That memory sharpened my resolve. I logged onto the IRS tip line, anonymously, and typed in every detail Ellen had flagged. Questionable deductions, suspicious expenses. I pulled dates straight from public filings, cross-checking everything before hitting submit. The screen's glow reflected back in my steady gaze. Outside, the neighborhood was winding down, kids being called inside, porch lights flicking on one by one. Watchful eyes in the gathering dark. Back at the table, my inbox began to fill. A bank email confirming asset holds. A tracking update for my certified mail. Each ping felt like another brick in the wall I was building. Then I sealed the final envelope and my phone lit up. Olivia's name flashed across the screen, urgent. At the same time, my computer chimed sharply. I leaned forward and opened the new email from Lauren. The subject line screamed in all caps. "Stop your harassment immediately." Her message spilled out like venom, legal jargon tangled with fury, threats of lawsuits for harassment and manipulation, accusations that I'd crossed lines on family assets she had no rightful claim to. My coffee mug sat beside me, leaving a faint ring on the page under it. One small imperfection in the middle of the storm I'd set in motion. Before I could think about replying, my phone rang again. Lauren's number this time. I put it on speaker, the phone vibrating against the wood. "Linda, you foolish woman," she boomed. That polished businesswoman voice was gone, replaced with raw, unfiltered rage. "What do you think you're doing?" Lauren's voice came through the speaker, sharp and furious. "Freezing accounts, meddling in my business? You think I don't know you're behind all this trouble with Olivia? Drag my company into your petty little grudge and you'll regret it." I stood, pacing to the window as the Milwaukee streetlights flickered on. "Petty," I said evenly. "I'm taking back what's mine, Lauren. Years of my work, my sweat, funding your shadow games. Threaten me all you want. My lawyer's ready." She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Your lawyer? Please. I have legal teams that eat people like you for breakfast. Back off now or I'll bury you so deep in court costs you won't see daylight. Olivia doesn't deserve this. You're destroying her out of pure jealousy and spite." Jealousy. The word yanked me into a memory. Lauren's first family barbecue at her massive home, years after my divorce. Olivia was hanging on her every joke while ignoring my call about a job opportunity I'd lined up for her. I'd built the bridges in that girl's life. Lauren just strolled in and took the credit for every crossing. "Destroying her?" I said. "No. I'm teaching her something you never could, real responsibility. Real respect." The threats started piling up from her end, restraining orders, countersuits, financial ruin, until I cut her off. "Save it for the judge." The silence that followed was thick, but it didn't last. Heavy knocks pounded at my front door, rattling the frame like thunder. I walked to the entryway and peered through the peephole. Olivia. Hair wild, eyes blazing with anger and desperation under the porch light. I cracked the door, keeping the chain latched. "Olivia, this isn't a good time." She shoved against it, the wood straining. "Let me in, Mom. This has gone way too far. You took my car, my apartment, and now Sarah says there might be audits and investigations. You're ruining my life." I unlatched the chain and stepped back as she stormed into the living room. The lamp cast jagged shadows across her tear-streaked face, the dark circles under her eyes stark in the warm light. "Ruining your life?" I said. "You've been ruining yourself. Leaning on me, calling Lauren your real mother figure. It's time to stand on your own 2 feet." Her finger jabbed the air toward me, her voice breaking in sharp peaks. "You don't get it. Lauren's helping me, offering a place to stay, loans to get back on my feet. You're just bitter and jealous because Dad chose someone better than you. Just admit it." Another painful echo. Michael at that same company barbecue whispering, "Lauren's been good for our family, Linda. You should move on." Move on. I had, by funding Olivia's life from the sidelines, working 2 jobs so she had everything she needed. "Better," I said, holding my ground. "I chose you, Olivia. Every paycheck, every sacrifice, every long night was for you. Lauren's help comes with strings. That's not love, it's control. Walk away from her influence or face the consequences on your own." She paced the living room like a caged animal, her shoulder bumping a side table and knocking a family photo askew. The picture tilted, showing smiling faces from a time that now felt like it belonged to someone else's life. "Consequences." Olivia's voice cracked into a shout. "I'm homeless because of you. Fix this right now or I'll join Lauren's lawsuit against you. We'll take everything you have left." The standoff was at its peak, her voice echoing off the walls, mine steady and unshaken. "Go ahead," I said. "Sue me if you want. The truth is on my side and I have documentation for every single thing I've done." Her hands balled into fists. Then she spun toward the door and slammed it so hard the frame rattled. From my window, I watched her climb into an expensive black car. Lauren's, no doubt. The tires screamed against the pavement as they tore down the street. The evening grew still, but the air inside my house hummed with unfinished business, with consequences still forming in the dark just out of sight. As those red tail lights disappeared into the night, I knew this wasn't over. But for the first time in years, I wasn't shrinking back. I was standing my ground. And that, I realized, was a victory worth every bit of the fight ahead. And if my story stayed with you, tap that like button and subscribe. It lets me know you're here and it helps this story reach the people who might need it most.